Alright guys, welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I'm here to talk to you about UFC Fight Night Paris, which was fucking awesome. My rule is, one of my many rules, if the main event is the fight of the night, it was a great event. And that's what we got here. This was a great event, almost regardless of how the rest of the card goes. That means you're leaving with a great taste in your mouth. But still, considering the rest of the card and how the event played out, it was a very good event. Love this one. I'm going to start at the top, work my way down. Ciryl Gane taking out Tai Tuivasa. As I said, this was the fight of the night, and it was fucking awesome. I don't even know how long the fight lasted into the second round, but you know, it was deep into the second round because that's where everything happened. And it was awesome. Ciryl Gane, it looked like in round one, like he was going to take the fight to Tai Tuivasa and eventually get him out of there, because he wasn't hurting or dominating Tai Tuivasa, but he was far ahead of Tai Tuivasa. He was dominant in one sense or another. And Ciryl Gane, with every physical attribute he's got, every physical advantage over Tai Tuivasa, it just seemed inevitable. Like, okay, Tai's not going to fight his way into this fight. It was round one or bust. But it was round two or bust. Tai Tuivasa, even though it wasn't looking good, he seized an opportunity early in round two and put Ciryl Gane on his ass. And it wasn't just a lucky punch, certainly, and it wasn't a just like a one shot, one punch. He got in some offense, and he looked really good doing it. Ciryl Gane, for the first time in his career, was almost finished. He's faced adversity before, of course, and dropped rounds, certainly, especially in the Ngannou fight, dropped 3 of them, but this was the most danger he was ever in. And Tai Tuivasa was swarming him. Like I said, it wasn't just one punch. He got in some offense, and Ciryl Gane, in the heat of the moment, he was throwing down. He's got some mean hooks, and he was throwing hooks, big overhand lefts and everything. He was throwing down, but once he fought his way out of the firefight, it was back to Ciryl Gane stabbing that body with those kicks, which I thought was going to be a factor coming into the fight, but during the fight, it was just, every one of them was, hurting Tai. He was grimacing for, like, I don't know, 10 of them. It was insane. And Tai Tuivasa, you knew he was getting the shit kicked out of him, but he stood in it, and eventually he was caught on the chin, and that's what put him away. But certainly he was weakened from all the body work. But great performance from Ciryl Gane. He pounced on Tai Tuivasa, got him down, and pounded him out. And Tai Tuivasa lost again, and he was finished again. But his stock rose here. Ciryl Gane was hurt. He was, I don't want to say nearly finished, but he was compromised, and he got the finish inside of the same round in which he was hurt, which is always the most impressive. I mean, it's impressive if you get hurt in round one, recompose yourself, get the finish in round 4 or whatever. That's impressive too, but getting hurt early in round 2 and then swarmed and then fighting your way out of that, finding your distance and finishing the guy inside of round 2, that's insane. So his stock rose tremendously, I want to say, which is, a great result from a minus 600 favorite or whatever. There wasn't much to gain on paper here, but Ciryl Gane did what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to get a finish, and he did, and he looked really good doing it. And I think we learned a little more about him as a fighter. Of course, with each punch, if somebody gets knocked down over the course of their career, whatever, that weakens them. That weakens their chin, that's whatever. But for him to fight his way out of that and do it the way he did, I feel like his stock rose, and my opinion of him as a fighter rose. My estimation of him as a man just fucking plummeted, though. No, I'm kidding. That was a line from The Sopranos. But anyway, great main event. Ciryl Gane kicked some ass, and Tai Tuivasa kicked some ass too. So what more could you ask? As for Ciryl Gane getting a title fight, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what's going on. You know, Ariel Helwani reported that Francis Ngannou versus Jones is the fight they're looking to make. I had it in my head Jones was booked to fight Stipe already, and I know most of the talk's been about that, but I don't even know how it's going to play out. But Ciryl Gane, he probably won't get a title shot next, I'm thinking, and I want to say I'm going to consider, you know, unless he gets his ass kicked, he's the guy I have in my head that's going to be a champion. You know, and in a rematch with Ngannou, I'd favor Gane. You know, especially because Gane had a lot of distinct success over Ngannou. He was the better man on the feet. Ngannou had nothing for him, and that's Ngannou's bread and butter. But Ngannou, you know, that was an incredible performance, which I already covered when the fight happened. I can't, you know, speak enough about how surprised I was with how that fight played out. But still, as impressed as I was with Ngannou in that championship performance, and, you know, not that it was a great fight or anything. I thought it was a sloppy, shitty fight, but still, Ciryl Gane's the man in the division. That's my opinion. All right. Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vittori. That was kind of about how I expected. Again, though, if you followed my pre-fight thing, that's not how I bet. I bet on Ciryl Gane via finish, so it worked out for me in the end. But Robert Whittaker via decision. As soon as that, I was in the middle of the first round, I was like, why didn't I bet on Whittaker via decision? Because I realized Vittori had nothing for him offensively. Whittaker's just got too much movement and too diverse striking for somebody like Vittori, which very few people can just dominate Vittori like that, but Whittaker's one of them. And Vittori, look, he's big, strong, relentless, and impossible to put away. But he's not the guy who can change even a round with a knockdown, or whatever. That's just not in his game, you know. I think he may have knocked down Hermanson, but he may not have. I remember he rocked Hermanson, but he's not a guy that's going to steal rounds with big moments. He's got to be dominating you to beat you. Everybody he's beaten, he's pretty much dominated. So, rough loss for Vittori. And Whittaker, you know, what could you say about Robert Whittaker? Has he not beaten anybody? I know he didn't fight Alex Pereira, but everybody else he's beaten. Everybody. Darren Till, Kelvin Gastelum, Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vittori, and whoever else he fought as a champion and before being a champion. He's beaten everybody. He takes on everybody. And, you know, I kind of felt bad for him after the second fight without Adesanya, because it was close and whatever, and I felt like, this is it for him or whatever. But I don't think this is it for him in the division, I'm saying. Certainly not if Pereira wins, but, which, you know, that fight is just, I'm really excited for that fight, which is in November, I believe. But Robert Whittaker, you know, even against Israel Adesanya, he's a worthy challenger. He is. And it's not like he's even putting away any of these other contenders. Those 4 fights I just mentioned were all decisions. And he's still, though, he's far and away the best challenger. And, you know, he's not going up to 205. I doubt he wants to go down to 170. This is his home. And, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing him fight Israel Adesanya. And that second fight was not, it was not a finish, and it was not a dominant performance from Israel Adesanya. Whittaker had a lot more success, and I'm sure he knows, especially after the success he found in, you know, with wrestling and everything in the second fight, he knows what to work on. So, that's a guy, he's still relatively young as a fighter or whatever, and I really want to see him fight his way to another title shot. Problem is, who's he going to fight? I don't know. Cannonier again, maybe? No, but whatever. He'll find something or whatever, but he's an excellent fighter, and he did what he was supposed to do. Vittori, I do think he's hit his ceiling, you know, and again, Whittaker with Adesanya is far and away better than everybody else. Doesn't mean Vittori's not going to have some more moments in the UFC, but I don't think he's going to reach the title again. I doubt so, anyway. And this was an ass-kicking. He does have a chin. Of course, he's tough as all hell and really tough to finish. You know, I don't know if we'll ever see him finished, but this was an ass kicking, and Vittori just doesn't have the dynamicism, if that's a word. He's not dynamic enough to make shit happen, you know, against guys with such great movement, which the best middleweights in the world have great movement and great striking. So Vittori, you know, he's still got a lot going for him, whatever. He's, you know, a fighter in his prime, and he's got some, you know, cachet. You know, it's possible he could main event some fight nights and whatever. But as far as that ladder goes, I think, you know, he's not going to get higher than he was when he fought Adesanya, and from here he's not going to get any higher. That's my opinion. But all right, next up, Alessio Di Chirico versus, fuck, was that the third fight? Or no? All right, I don't know. That's how I wrote it down anyway. Alessio Di Chirico versus Roman Kopylov. And that's right, it wasn't that. It was Nasruddin Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley. Now that fight was awesome. And I was wrong with my prediction. I predicted a knockout. I think I even said knockout one way or the other. I picked Imavov to win via knockout, but I said if it goes the other way, it's going to be Buckley via knockout. And instead, we got a 3-round war where, again, kind of like the main event, the loser in this fight got over. His stock went up. Joaquin Buckley doesn't help his resume, his record, really, having all that red on it. You know, he's got some losses in the UFC where he's, whatever, you got to win more than you lose. And he's not, but still, this was a loss in which he looked like a very good fighter, a worthy challenger, and maybe the favorite in a 5-round fight. So, can't fault him, you know, for his effort in round 3. That's all I could ask for, is when a guy is down 2 rounds, that they just show you they're trying to finish, you know, which, going back to Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman, which, by the way, I just want to talk about that fight. That's all I ever want to do since it happened. It was such an amazing moment. But, Leon Edwards, you know, he landed that kick and everything worked out perfectly for him in round 5, no less, and with 1 minute left. But, he wasn't fighting for it. Like, he wasn't trying. And I know he landed the kick. What the fuck do you know? You're just some jerk off on YouTube. Agreed. But he didn't try as hard as Joaquin Buckley tried to win that fight against Imavov. And I know Imavov is a different fighter than Kamaru Usman. It's different having Usman in front of you. But I'm just saying, when somebody performs like they did, like Joaquin Buckley did, all you can do is praise them, because that's all I ask, and I hate when other fighters don't fight like that. When you're down 2 rounds, and Buckley's a guy who, more so than any other fighter, that, you know, certainly Leon Edwards and whoever else, he doesn't trust his chin as much. His chin has failed him. He's been knocked out, and he was hurt in this fight, and it takes a lot of guts to fight like he did in round 3, you know? And the fight in general and yada yada, but the fight like he did in round 3 takes a tremendous amount of guts, and that's why I'm talking about him first, because he's the loser, and he was still on my mind because I was so impressed with that. But Imavov was the you know, got the better of him in the first 2 rounds anyway. He was really doing well against Buckley at range. I thought he was going to knock out Buckley. That's what I thought coming into the fight, and I became, you know, more sure of that as the fight went on. But Buckley's chin survived, and Imavov just couldn't hold up for 3 rounds. He couldn't hold up. He was reduced to even panic wrestling in round 3 and whatever. And again, you know, he's the winner, but that's my takeaway. When you have such a lopsided round 3 for the loser, that's just my takeaway. So Imavov still, he impressed me. I do think he's a good prospect. And surviving Buckley in round 3, fighting like that, is still very impressive. So I can't fault him there. That is a good trait to have as a fighter, despite not showing up really for round 3, you know, which could be and probably is a cardio issue. Still, his stock can only go up with a victory over Buckley, with some reservations and whatever, obviously, but a solid win over a high-profile guy, Joaquin Buckley. Not that he's high on the ladder, but he's got some profile, no doubt about it. Which is why he was the third fight, probably, instead of Alessio Di Chirico versus Roman Kopylov, which was the fourth fight. They switched that around last minute, I guess. But anyway, that brings me to them. And Kopylov, I was really impressed by him here. I did think he was the better technical guy, but I thought he was going to be overwhelmed. And even physically and whatever, I just had in my head that Chirico was the bigger guy. He is more, whatever. He's more the... I don't know if he's bricked up or whatever, but he's slower anyway. He moves like he is. But Kopylov was bigger, moved well, and struck better, if I used the grammar correctly there. Roman Kopylov kicked ass. And Di Chirico just, he was a step behind the whole way, but I thought he was going to make it. And then in round 3, the first minute or so, I forget exactly how it happened, but he just poured it on Di Chirico, and Di Chirico just put his hands down and tried to do this like Anderson Silva shit. It could have been where he was rocked to the point where he dropped his hands for whatever reason, or blah, 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 but I think it was intentional, where it was like, all right, I'm going to get out of this, and I'm going to do it with my hands down, and that's what led to the knockout shot, or the finish shot, where he was put out, and... I hope that wasn't the case, because if it is the case, it's an embarrassing loss. But whatever, I'll give him some slack, because he was in the middle of getting teed off on. So I'm going to assume that maybe he didn't mean to drop his hands in the middle of a flurry against the cage with a longer fighter. But great win for Kopylov. He really needed this. He's had a rough go in the UFC. I want to say tough guys, but Carl Roberson's been cut since he fought him. So maybe it wasn't the toughest schedule, but still, Carl Roberson, like I said in the pre-fight, he's an underrated grappler. He's got an underrated top game, and that was a really rough debut for Kopylov. Didn't get any better with whoever Duraev, but now he's he's got a victory in the UFC, and it's over a solid UFC veteran. Even if Di Chirico was cut after this one, which is absolutely reasonable, it's still a solid victory. And he was, I think, they were even odds going into it, so it wasn't like he was favored to win this. All right, next up, Nazrat Hapgrass versus John Mcdessie. This was a pretty one-sided fight. It was weird. It was like after the fight, the bell rang, and maybe it was just Mcdessie holding his hands up, but I had this moment like, was that close? I don't think that was close, but no. But, it is John Mcdessie. And, look, Mcdessie, from what I saw, he was never really into this. I want to look up the media scorecard decisions there, but I think Nazrat Hapgrass was largely dominant. I do think he could have poured it on and taken it to Mcdessie in round 3, but he's a guy who, like whoever else I was just talking about, Buckley, he's been knocked out before, and he probably felt comfortable fighting for his UFC career, on the back foot a little bit. So Mcdessie, speaking of the back foot, Mcdessie is he's a counter striker who moves forward. That's what Mcdessie is. That's why his fights are always close. That's what occurred to me in the middle of the fight, where it's like, was this close? I don't know. But that's his game, and it didn't work for him. He was fighting a guy 10 years younger with much better hands, much better left hands, and he had nothing for him, really, in my opinion. Tough loss for Mcdessie, especially at this point in his career. And for Hapgrass, he didn't come away, he didn't shine in this one, but he walked away with a clean victory and kept his UFC career going. So, good fight. Next up was William Gomes versus Yarno Arens. This was an interesting fight. It went about how I thought it was going to go for the first 2 rounds, and then Arens, I think he had... I can't even remember this, but I think he had him in a triangle for the last 2 minutes. Yeah, it was a triangle, and it was very tight. And it was not tight enough to finish. I think his positioning was off. Not that I'm some triangle expert, but he it was tight enough to hold him in that, which, you know, at the very least, holding someone in a triangle choke, even if you know you're not going to get the finish, if you have the leg strength to do it, especially in the last few minutes of the fight, do it. Because as we saw, it could lead to a 10-8 round. You know, it is dominance, and it's dangerous as far as, you know, anybody, whatever, trained or untrained, anybody goes, really. But certainly, you're the only one who knows it isn't tight, or you're not going to get a finish with it. The judges, the viewers, we don't know anything else. But Yarno Arens had a good showing there, especially in round 3. Again, he stole round 3. You know, like, it's not like he was trying as hard as Buckley, but he didn't have to. He made it work for him. And William Gomez survived, to his credit. You know, that was tight, like I said. I don't know exactly what he was feeling, but I know he couldn't get out of it. And in rounds 1 and 2, I thought he won with physicality, which was what I thought would make the difference in that one. So, whatever, good debuts from both guys, really. It was a majority decision. That's why I think one guy gave a 10-8 round to Arens. But William Gomez walked away, and he's a French guy with a hometown victory. So, good television. Next up, Charles Jourdain and Nathaniel Wood. Well, I got this one wrong. Charles Jourdain is bigger and stronger and whatever, but, well, I don't know about stronger, but he was bigger, taller than Nathaniel Wood, and he didn't fight like it. That's one thing I got wrong coming into this. You know, Charles Jourdain, it's just where he does his best work is inside, pummeling, you know, and pounding on you with hooks, and there's no straight punching from Jourdain. He's not going to work teep kicks and whatever. He's not Ciryl Gane. He doesn't use his height and whatever in his reach to his advantage. And Nathaniel Wood, you know, he really impressed me. Not only with his implementing foot trips to get takedowns over Jourdain, because as he said, he doesn't want to waste time going for double legs and whatever. That's a guy who, fighting bigger guys especially, was worried about fatiguing himself, and he fought very smartly once he knew he could find takedowns that way. I don't even know how many he found, but I think it was over 5 with foot trips from the clinch. And some of them very abrupt, where they would clinch up right away like a judoka, and he would just trip them. So, really cool performance from Nathaniel Wood. But also on the feet, I thought he was the better striker in this one. And I did think he'd be better technically, as I mentioned, coming into the pre-fight, which he was. But I just didn't think he would be able to take advantage of a technical fight, because I thought Jourdain would just be, you know, only getting stronger, and Jourdain would be taking over with his reach and whatever. But I got this one wrong. Jourdain just, he's not a guy who uses his reach. And he was fighting a guy who I underestimated because he's coming up from bantamweight, but still at bantamweight, I thought he was phenomenal, Nathaniel Wood. But this was an awesome victory. Great win. Maybe not the most exciting fight, certainly not the most exciting Charles Jourdain fight, but a very good victory for Nathaniel Wood. 2-0 in like 2 months, and he beat a guy with a lot of hype, Jourdain. So that was awesome. Next up, Abusupian Magomedov beat Dustin Stoltzfus in like 5 seconds or something. I don't know. It was insane, and I kind of felt bad for Stoltzfus. That could be it for him. I'm not sure. He has that win over Dwight Grant, which, you know, speaking of welterweights moving up to middleweight or whatever, that's not the best win, but still was a good win. And this was a horrible loss. Great debut for Magomedov. Amazing debut. He's a guy, like I said, years ago, I had a lot of, you know, he had a lot of hype, and I had a lot of hope, or whatever. Not that I was invested as a fan or whatever, but he's a guy who I had my eye on. And then to see him come in like this years later and find a debut like that, it was awesome. Great moment for Abusupian. He's a guy I thought would get a submission, just because I tend to look at whoever I think is going to lose that guy's weaknesses, which, not that Stoltzfus is a weak grappler, but that's how he loses, and didn't need to get there. Magomedov just poured it on him. Forget what he landed first. He landed a big kick. Fuck. But he landed a big kick that rocked him. Front kick to the face. That's what it was. He front kicked him. And then seconds later, I think Stoltzfus was still hurt, collapsed, went back to the cage, and then Magomedov pounced on him until he collapsed and just rocked his shit. So that was an awesome performance, as good as a debut could ever go. And welcome to the UFC. Hopefully he fights again soon. Really cool victory, though. Next up, Firas Ziam versus Michael Michel, as I was calling him. This was the Firas Ziam show. He's the hometown guy in France, and I thought he kicked a lot of ass here. He really impressed me. Like I said, coming into the fight, I thought he could be at a technical advantage here against Figlak, but Figlak just brings that forward pressure, which hasn't stopped him as a pro. He's been undefeated as a pro and as an amateur too. I think he had a good amateur career, and for Siam, he's got a deceptive record because he's been getting his ass kicked in the UFC, and Figlak is not Terrence McKinney, it turns out, and great win for Ziam. Ziam, it was a tough first round, but he only got more dominant as the fight went on, and he started finding success everywhere. On the feet, of course, taking him down. Just a great classic hometown performance. Really got the crowd fired up, and that was an awesome fight. Wasn't going to be fight of the night or anything, but especially with the crowd, it was great television. I thought it was awesome, and good win for Ziam. That's a guy who's had a tough road in the UFC, and his back was against the wall with this one. And he got a big win, and I think now he's 3-2 in the UFC. Got a winning record after 5 fights. He's going to be sticking around, and he's only 25 years old. Figlak, not the best debut. Kind of ran into a wall here in his career, but he's 26, I think, and he didn't go anywhere in this fight. So I think he's going to stick around the UFC, and we'll see what happens. Next up was Benoit Saint-Denis taking out Gabriel Miranda. Gabriel Miranda, I bet on the first round submission and second round submission in this one for Miranda because the odds were too good. And still, kind of went how I thought. I thought Saint-Denis would get a TKO victory later in the fight. I thought it would happen in round 3, happen in round 2. But I was impressed, really impressed by Saint-Denis in this fight. This was another big hometown victory. And, he looked really good. There were a few moments in round 1 where I was worried about him taking strikes, actually, from Miranda. But it was clear, even within round 1, that Miranda wasn't the striker Saint-Denis was, and towards the end, he was being beaten up, and then seconds into round 2, it was over. I think it was just like one punch, and Miranda collapsed, and that was it. Saint-Denis poured it on. Awesome victory. He didn't need any hometown cheers to help him with any judge's decision, but he got some hometown cheers and a big victory. This guy's got that was his 3rd fight, I think, in the UFC, and he's, he had a beautiful moment there. And everybody will remember his first loss to Zaleski just because it was such an egregious ass-kicking and referee job. But he showed a lot of toughness there, and in this one, he was rocked for a split second or whatever, but he got to be the hammer. So it was fucking awesome. Great win for Saint-Denis. And tough loss for Miranda. Tough debut. Next up, Khalid Taha. I got that one wrong. I thought he would win the fight. I thought his power would carry him either to a decision, but more likely a knockout. Christian Quinones just kicked his ass and knocked him out. And I still stand by my assessment of Christian Quinones, where I think he's going to be sticking around, I think, especially after a win like that in the UFC. I don't just mean for one fight. Of course, he's going to come back for another fight, but I think he's UFC bound. And he's beaten some great fighters and whatever, but he's got his chin up in the air. I don't like the way he takes shots. I think the next time he loses is going to be a TKO or a KO. And it's going to be because he makes a lot of mistakes like that striking. But Khalid Taha, that's a tough loss for him. And great win for Quinones, because Taha's never been finished with strikes. And he's a guy that he looks like a guy who can take strikes. That's how I thought of him since he came to the UFC. And he's taken his share of ass kickings, but his chin, I've never questioned it. And it was awesome to see a UFC debutante, to sound like a cocksucker, that put him away like this. So great debut for Christian Quinones. Khalid Taha, even with his victory being overturned years ago and whatever, I still think he's a good fighter, belongs in the UFC, but his power and whatever, everything I thought would be an advantage in this fight, it wasn't there. And Quinones got a great victory. Awesome debut. Speaking of debuts, Eileen Perez made her debut against Stephanie Edgar. This was about how I thought the fight would go. Even though I didn't bet on it, I bet on first round submission, second round, and Eileen Perez via decision. Stephanie Edgar was, gifted a fighter here that goes for that goes right to the clinch. She fights, like I said, coming into the fight, I've seen this girl shoot 12 takedowns, and at least 11 of them where she punches her way into the clinch and rips someone to the ground. And fighting someone with a winning record for a change is, especially a UFC level fighter like Stephanie Edgar and a judoka at her level, that was a bad matchup, and that's how it played out. Perez is strong. She hit a nice sweep, and she's got some skill certainly on the ground and whatever, but she was just outclassed here. And Stephanie Edgar hit her with at least 2 nice judo tosses or head and arm throws. One of them, she didn't even have the head. She kind of like locked the arms and used that as like something she could cinch and, create a nice toss. You can tell I'm a judo expert, but excellent performance from Stephanie Edgar. This was the redemption she sought. It's weird saying that word out loud. The redemption she was seeking, because she was fighting just few weeks, 6 weeks, maybe not even 3 weeks. I don't even remember when the loss to Mayra Bueno Silva was, but it wasn't long ago at all. So for her to take this fight, I guess her arm wasn't compromised, and she wanted redemption, and she got it here. She did what she should have done as a favorite and a UFC veteran and whatever, and she put away with a second round rear naked choke right at the end too. That was just seconds left. I thought Perez could have made it, but Stephanie Edgar is a submission artist, and she took her out. So that was an awesome victory, and altogether an awesome card. Really, really enjoyed this whole event. I hate when other people say card, and now I'm doing what they do. Card is just the fights. Tai Tuivasa versus Ciryl Gane. The event is what happens. The event is what happens during the fights. Oh, that was a great event because of what happened during the fights. All right. Who the fuck am I talking to here? But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. And I will be talking to you very soon about UFC 279. Are you excited like I'm excited? I do that shit. I actually do that shit. I'm 36 and I get fucking excited. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you soon.